Hi, I'm Madison, 26 years old, and I thought I knew my best friend. I was wrong. She smiled at me every morning like we were inseparable. But behind that smile, she was slowly tearing my life apart. I had no idea, not until it was almost too late. If you've ever trusted someone completely, only to be betrayed, hit that like button. Subscribe, because today, I'm sharing exactly how I fought back and reclaimed my life. I met her in college, Sophia. From the first moment, it felt like we'd been friends forever. We laughed until our stomachs hurt, stayed up all night sharing secrets, and promised we'd never let anyone or anything come between us. I told her everything, my fears, my dreams, my plans. And she always listened, or so I thought. Everything started to shift after graduation. I landed a dream job at a competitive marketing firm in Chicago, a position I had worked tirelessly for. I thought Sophia would celebrate with me, but the first red flag came when she congratulated me, just a little too late. A vague excuse, a shrug, and then silence. At first, I ignored it. Maybe she was busy. But then, little things piled up. A client praised my campaign in a meeting, and suddenly, another colleague got the credit. I couldn't understand it. I trusted Sophia for guidance, but she seemed to vanish whenever I needed her. Then came the whispers. Casual remarks in the break room. Did you hear about Madison? I'm not sure she's ready for this role. I heard she messed up the Miller project. I felt my stomach drop every time someone said my name. My heart pounded, my palms sweated, and I couldn't shake the paranoia. I even started questioning myself. Had I really messed up that badly? One evening, I confronted her. Sophia, what's going on? People are saying things about me, did you tell anyone? Her smile was perfect, sweet, innocent, almost angelic. Madison, you're imagining things. I'd never do that. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But deep down, a gnawing doubt lingered. A sense of dread that grew stronger each day. Projects I'd slaved over vanished, colleagues gave me suspicious glances, and even our mutual friends began to drift away. My life was unraveling, and every thread pointed back to her. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my chest tight with panic. The betrayal felt suffocating, like being trapped underwater with no way out. How could someone I loved, someone I trusted more than anyone, slowly ruin me and smile while doing it? Then came the moment of clarity. I caught a glimpse of her texting behind my back, her face lit by the glow of her phone, smirking. That's when the truth hit me like a gut punch. Sophia had been lying. To everyone. Twisting stories, spreading rumors, manipulating people. And I, foolishly, had given her every weapon she needed. My world felt shattered. My dreams, my reputation, my friendships, all collapsing around me. But amidst the panic, a single thought emerged: I couldn't let her win. Not now. Not ever. And that's when I began planning. After that night, I felt like I was suffocating. Every hallway at work, every coffee break, every casual gathering, everywhere I went, whispers followed me. I tried to act normal, but inside, I was crumbling. My confidence, once unshakable, had been shredded by someone I trusted most. It wasn't just work. Even my personal life suffered. Mutual friends started taking sides, or avoiding me entirely. Invitations to events dried up. Texts went unanswered. I'd call Sophia, hoping for support, and she'd respond with saccharine cheer: "Don't stress, everything will work out for you. You're too sensitive sometimes." I wanted to scream, but I swallowed my frustration. I had no proof, and in a world that believes charm over truth, I knew I couldn't just lash out blindly. I tried confronting her multiple times. "Sophia, I can see what you're doing. Stop." She'd tilt her head, eyes wide, voice soft: "Madison, you're imagining things again. Everyone loves you. Don't let stress get to you." It was maddening. She was untouchable. And every time I looked at her, that perfect smile mocked me. Days bled into weeks. I couldn't eat properly, slept in fits, and my anxiety became a constant, gnawing companion. I replayed every conversation, every meeting, every casual remark. Where had I gone wrong? Could I have prevented this? Was I too naive, too trusting? Then came the turning point, the night I stumbled across a conversation she had accidentally left open on her laptop. I didn't plan to snoop, but fate has a way of revealing the truth when you least expect it. I read her messages to a colleague. Madison has no idea I'm handling this. By the time she realizes, it'll be too late. Everyone will believe me, not her. I remember freezing, heart hammering, palms slick with sweat. Everything clicked. The missed calls, the rumors, the stolen credit, all of it. Every sleepless night, every pang of humiliation, every doubt, it had been orchestrated by her. My best friend. My so-called sister. The pain was overwhelming, but amid the despair, anger flared. Not the fleeting kind of anger, but a cold, calculating rage. I realized that if I wanted justice, I couldn't rely on anyone else. I had to be smart, patient, meticulous. Revenge wasn't just about hurting her, it was about reclaiming my life, proving to everyone, including myself, that I wasn't fragile. For the next few weeks, I became a shadow in my own life. I kept working, smiled at colleagues, nodded at Sophia's innocent facade, but inside, I was cataloging every lie, every rumor, every betrayal. I started quietly talking to coworkers I trusted, planting seeds of truth without revealing myself. I documented emails, messages, inconsistencies. Every late-night anxiety attack became fuel for strategy. Some nights, I questioned myself. Was I becoming obsessed? Would this backfire? Could I really turn the tables? But every time I saw her laughing with our old friends, basking in a false aura of trust, I felt that fire ignite again. I couldn't rest until she faced the consequences she had so carefully orchestrated for me. And then, one night, a thought hit me with crystal clarity. Revenge isn't just reaction, it's an art. And I was ready to master it. The night after I found her messages, I didn't sleep. I paced my tiny apartment until my feet ached, the city humming outside like some indifferent beast. My chest was tight, like something heavy had been placed on it. Tears came, of course, but they were quick and sharp, the kind that clear your vision and leave room for something else. Anger settled in like an old coat I couldn't shrug off. This time I didn't let it burn me out. I folded it into something colder, something useful. First rule, don't act while emotional. Second rule, never give her the satisfaction of knowing you're planning. I told myself those lines until they became truth. So I started small, quiet, surgical. I set up a system. A notebook I kept hidden in my bedside drawer, a folder on my personal phone where I saved screenshots, timestamps, emails. I learned the rhythms of her days, how she drank her coffee at 9:17 a.m., how she chewed the inside of her cheek when nervous, how she always left her laptop unlocked at the office. I watched, like a scientist watching a subject, cataloging habits that would later be my evidence. Work became my hunting ground. I smiled more than I had in months. I showed up early, stayed late, and took on small, visible wins that people noticed. It was exhausting, like walking through molasses, but each tiny victory was a brick I was laying back into my life. All the while, I played the part of the fragile friend, careful not to appear vindictive, careful not to be obvious. "Madison, you okay?" asked Jamie from HR one afternoon, voice soft in the kitchen. I decided Jamie might be an ally. She was fair, had been with the company long enough to know the politics but short enough to want to be on the right side of the truth. I considered telling her everything, but instead I said, "I'm fine. Just tired." Truth, but not the whole truth. She nodded and handed me coffee, and I felt the tiniest thread of relief. I also started reaching out to people Sophia had hurt, quietly, privately. I didn't launch into attacks. I asked questions, listened, and let them speak their own misgivings. One by one, say 2 hours of careful conversation at a time, people began to admit what they'd been told and how it didn't add up. A vendor who'd been paid late, a former intern who had been blamed for a missed deadline. Small things, but patterns form from small things. I kept a list. There were close calls. Once, Sophia sat next to me in the cafeteria, face lit by an unreadable smile. "Everything okay, Maddie?" she purred. My heart jolted, but my face stayed calm. "Yeah," I said. "Busy season." She laughed, too loud, then asked about a client I'd been working on. My throat closed. I felt the old panic rise, but I answered with neutral facts, not emotion. She watched me like a hunter watching prey. For a second I thought she'd lean in and expose me, call me paranoid, drama, unhinged. She didn't. She smiled and walked away. Close call number 1, survived. Another time, I thought I'd been discovered. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." My breath went cold. I stared at the screen, nails digging into my palm. Whoever sent it wanted me to stop. They were scared, or arrogant, or both. I took a photo, saved the number, and added it to my file. Fear makes people sloppy. I intended to use every slip. Planning revenge wasn't a single flash of inspiration. It was 1,000 tiny decisions threaded together. I knew public humiliation wasn't my style and probably wouldn't be effective. I wanted a dismantling that felt inevitable, facts that made her look not just callous, but dishonest to everyone who had trusted her. The goal was to remove her armor, the image she'd built where people assumed she was the steady, reliable one. So I devised a slow unravel strategy. Step 1, consolidate proof. Step 2, neutralize her allies without making myself the obvious antagonist. Step 3, expose her in a way that made denial impossible. Each step had sub-steps, fallback plans, and contingencies. I drew diagrams on the back of receipts. I set up fake accounts to test how she reacted online. I rewired my social life to include people she'd impressed but never truly earned. There were ethical lines I refused to cross. I wasn't going to fabricate anything. I refused the low, petty temptations, spreading false rumors, hacking accounts, turning people into weapons for my own anger. The revenge I wanted had to be pure in its truth. If I was going to reclaim my life, I wanted to do it by holding a mirror up to what she'd done and letting others see it reflected back. The hardest part was patience. Revenge requires timing. There were nights I wanted to move faster, to send an anonymous email and watch the dominoes fall. Instead I sat on my hands and brewed tea, practiced neutral responses in the mirror, rehearsed my calm. I told myself the wait would be worth it. And then came the opening I hadn't expected, a small accounting error in a monthly report where money meant for a charity event had been misallocated. It was a minor line item, one most people wouldn't notice, but it was tied to a vendor Sophia had recommended. I flagged it quietly to Jamie, framed as concern for compliance. Jamie promised to look into it. That single action set the corporate gears in motion without my name anywhere in the mechanism. That night, I lay awake listening to the radiator click, every nerve on edge. The plan had been set into motion, but plans can go sideways. I pictured Sophia walking into HR, smiling like nothing was wrong. I imagined her confidence cracking when she saw the documents. I imagined the first domino fall. And I imagined, too, the cost, for both of us. There was a strange, bitter satisfaction in the knowledge that I was no longer helpless. I'd become purposeful. But purpose has a weight. It stole sleep in a way sorrow never had. Sorrow hurt, this felt like a responsibility. I was the architect now, and every choice could either free me or bury me deeper. 2 days later, Jamie called me into her office with a face that was serious but neutral. "We need to talk about a discrepancy," she said, sliding a printout across the desk. My stomach flipped. I kept my expression even. Inside, my pulse thundered. This was the moment the plan met reality. Before Jamie could continue, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. We know what you're doing. Stop. The words on the screen blurred. My hands trembled, but I set the phone face down, swallowed my fear, and looked Jamie in the eye. Tell me, I said, voice steady. Tell me everything. And as she began to speak, the door to my carefully constructed trap creaked open, only I didn't know yet whether it would close around Sophia, or around me. Jamie's voice was low, careful, like someone reading from a script that was slowly rewriting itself. There's a discrepancy in the event ledger, she said. Payments routed to a vendor Sophia recommended, several checks, wrong account numbers, and one invoice that doesn't match any work we received. We're opening an audit. I don't know why, but I wanted you to be aware. My throat went dry. The radiator hummed like a countdown. I felt a cold clarity. This was the hinge. For months I'd been building a case none of them could dismiss as bitterness. Now, the company's own systems were starting to ask questions. That evening, I watched Sophia from across the office like a coiled spring. She chatted with our manager, animated and brilliant at putting people at ease. Her laughter was a bright bell that felt suddenly brittle. I kept my face neutral, the way I'd practiced. When she caught my eye, she raised her fingers in a cheerful wave. My heart thudded, not with panic now, but with something that felt like resolve. The audit unfolded like a slow-motion reveal. Jamie and the compliance team called more documents. Vendors were questioned. A pattern emerged: small favors repaid with influence, friendly referrals that led to kickbacks masked as legitimate consulting fees, and the most damning thread, emails and messages where Sophia had explicitly instructed others to manage the narrative around certain missed deadlines and budget errors. She hadn't just lied, she'd engineered trust and then siphoned it away. When HR scheduled a formal meeting and asked Sophia to come in, I felt an animal instinct to flee. Instead I sat very still in my cube, fingers tight around my coffee cup, listening to the hollow tick of the clock. The meeting lasted 3 hours. People who had once defended her in casual whispers sat across from her now with folded arms and hard eyes. I imagined the sunlight hitting her face through the glass and refracting her smile into something cracked. She was defiant at first. "This is a misunderstanding," she insisted, voice even, polished. "Someone's trying to sabotage me." But details don't bend to charm forever. One by one the documents were laid out, her signatures, her suggestions to redirect funds, her messages urging others to create false logs if questioned. Her eyes went wide then hard. For a terrifying second she reached for the old performance, pleading, small. "Madison, someone's lying." I felt a wash of something I didn't expect, pity, like the last soft thing you feel before a hard lesson finishes. She looked smaller than she had in photos, less practiced. Then, in a voice that had been slick 1,000 times, she tried a different tactic: blame. "You always thought you were the victim," she said when I walked past the HR door later. "You always wanted the spotlight." Her words were aimed to wound. I let them slide off. The fallout was messy and public. She was suspended pending investigation, and rumor, ironically, spread like wildfire. But this time, the rumors were supported by paper, by witness statements, by the tiny details I had tracked, timestamps, screenshots, a vendor who corroborated being pressured into silence. People who'd once shrugged at my concerns began to reach out, apologizing, embarrassed and ashamed. Some friendships mended, some evaporated entirely. I remember the first time someone said my name with warmth again. It was Carla from accounts. Her voice on the phone trembled as she said, "I'm sorry I doubted you. I should have listened." That one sentence felt like breathing after being underwater for years. I thought it would be triumphant and sweet, but triumph arrived as a strange, hollow echo. The price had been sleepless nights, anxiety, and a version of myself that had been hardened into a strategist by pain. When Sophia's termination letter came, it landed like a verdict rather than a victory. She packed her things with the same slow, practiced calm she'd used to manipulate people for months. As she walked past my desk one last time, our eyes met. There was no apology in her face, only a cold understanding that the world had shifted and she had miscalculated. Her departure felt less like revenge served and more like an ending I'd been forced to write to survive. Night after night in the weeks that followed, I replayed the whole thing, not for malice, but to understand how I'd become both victim and agent. The loudest lesson wasn't that she'd been exposed. It was that I'd learned how fragile our identities are when handed to others. I had trusted so freely I'd given someone the ink to rewrite my story. Reclaiming it required meticulous care and, yes, a kind of ruthlessness I never knew I had. People asked if I felt vindicated. The truth was complicated. There was relief, of course, relief that the lies stopped. There was also an ache for the friendship that had once been real, for the childlike trust I'd lost. Revenge had a taste that was not purely sweet, it was mixed with exhaustion and the knowledge that some scars don't fade. In the quiet that followed, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I allowed myself to rebuild for reasons beyond proving someone wrong. I reconnected with friends who had stuck around, accepted apologies from people who genuinely meant them, and, most importantly, forgave myself for trusting too easily. Forgiveness wasn't about absolving her. It was about reclaiming my peace. A month after everything blew up, I walked into a client meeting with my head held high. The room's air felt fresher, as if some stale, suffocating presence had been replaced. People listened. They respected the work I'd always done. I felt proud in a way that had nothing to do with her downfall. But the last, sharp twist came quietly. One night, scrolling through an old photo album, I found a message Sophia had once sent me years ago, a message I'd kept like a talisman. Promise me, Maddie, that if anything ever goes wrong between us, you'll tell me first. I don't want secrets. I stared at the words so long they blurred. For a moment, all the cold planning, the audits, the meetings, everything, completely collapsed into that single line. The betrayal stung in a different way. Not only had she lied to others, she'd lied to me where I'd least expected it. That realization changed the shape of my victory. It wasn't about proving who was right or wrong to everyone else. It was about learning to be sovereign over my own story again. I had been given a choice: continue to be defined by how others saw me, or define myself by what I knew I could do. I chose the latter. I lost a friend and, in losing her, found a backbone I didn't know I had. The revenge I sought wasn't savage, it was surgical. I took back pieces of my life with evidence, calm, and patience. The lesson was brutal and simple: trust is a gift, not a guarantee. Guard it. Test it. And when it's betrayed, fight not to hurt, but to restore what was stolen: your reputation, your peace, and your agency. If this story hit home, share it. Someone you love might need to hear they can rebuild. Hit like if you believe justice can be earned without losing your humanity, and subscribe for more true stories about betrayal, grit, and payback. Comment below: have you ever had to reclaim your life after betrayal? I read every message.